Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Bill, and thanks for joining me on my next episode of Where Spirit Meets Science. So I'd like to welcome everybody here today. Today's theme is going to be about overcoming limiting beliefs. And this is from an excerpt from one of my upcoming books titled Quantum Grace, Contemplations for the Spiritual Journey. So my intent, in case you missed the introductory podcast, this is the second one. You can go back and listen to that in terms of the format, but let me review that quickly here for you. My intent is to do these shows on a weekly basis, and on Sunday mornings, I'll stream live normally, and then of course the episodes are available on the website and various platforms, which I'll tell you about later. And probably maybe 30 to 45 minutes tops. Not really a long amount of time, but just targeted on certain messages I want to share with you. So again, today's message is overcoming limiting beliefs and embracing your unlimited potential. Okay. And what we do for each podcast is first start with a guided meditation. And again, if you're new to meditation, guided meditation is a good way to start. You can certainly go to my website. There's some guided meditations there. I'll be adding more in the future. But those are a great way. That's how I started, I don't know, more than 20 years ago when I started meditation. I started with guided meditations. And occasionally I do those, but it's a practice that you develop as part of your spiritual journey and your path. So it's all about mind, body, and spirit, and your spiritual practice, whatever that is for you. But the meditation is good. So we're going to do this for about 5 minutes here. I'm going to play some music in the background. And let me start that, and then we'll get into it. So find yourself in a comfortable position, situated. And we're going to focus our meditation today on new beliefs and possibilities, whatever that is for you. So first, let's take some deep cleansing breaths. We breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth. Again. And as we're breathing in and out, we let go of the worries of the day. Nothing else matters at this moment. Breathe in and breathe out. Release any conscious thought of those things that you're currently sitting with. Think of them as clouds passing by in the sky. You see them there, but you give them no attention. You breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in and breathe out. And as we're breathing in and out and comfortably sitting in this place, let's think about what we want to create in our life. No matter what it is, whatever limitation you've attached to it, we will talk about how to overcome that. So breathe in and breathe out. Feel the energy of this new creation that you wish to make in your journey. It's exciting. You don't have to know the how. You just breathe into it and feel it. And we breathe in, continue to settle into our sacred space with no worries about anything. It's not important at this time. Continue to breathe in deeply through your nose and out through your mouth. Find yourself thinking of something that you want to create right now. First thing that comes to your mind. See that. Visualize it. Breathe into the energy of that. Let it take you in that energetic space of that creation. If a negative thought comes into mind about, no, I can't do that, just release it. It's not important. The way will always present itself. You have unlimited potential. You can embrace all that is within you. And as we continue to breathe in and out, we can open our eyes and find ourselves in this peaceful place where we're sitting. And so it is. Wonderful. So I hope that feels wonderful for you. And we'll start with a quote that I like. It's one of my favorites. That says, quote, "Everyone who is seriously involved in the pursuit of science becomes convinced that a spirit is manifest in the laws of the universe, a spirit vastly superior to that of man." End quote. And that quote was made by Albert Einstein. I wish I had the opportunity to meet him in my lifetime. That would have been pretty cool. He sounds like he would have been an interesting discussion with him. But he was correct in this thinking. You know, being a scientist myself, I can relate to this because, you know, this whole theme for this podcast and my writing stuff is about where spirit meets science. It's the scientist on the spiritual journey who's, you know, questioning all these things and these experiences that happened to me on this journey. And there are so many miraculous things that are occurring in life. And most of the times we can only contemplate the reality on the surface rather than accepting them as truth. So that's the limitations we put on ourselves when we do that. Even though it's right in front of us, we create a belief in our minds that says and stops us from doing that. And when we're younger, as children, I think we don't have any fear of jumping into anything. I think that's true. And as we grow and get older and move through our culture and society and our friends and family and all of that experiences, it starts to throttle down that energy of wanting to do something miraculous, create something new in their life. And I think this happens to everyone. And just like any spiritual practice or anything that you're doing, the real key is finding the tools that work for you to move through your journey and on to the next phase of that, whatever that is for you, or wherever you are, it doesn't matter. And there's no right or wrong way. There's no there's no set roadmap for anyone. It's really fit for purpose for the individual and what works for them. And only you will know that. But the fact, if you're watching this podcast or you're reading books about this and thinking about your spiritual journey, for sure you're thinking about, you're coming up against those beliefs that you may have, that you have limitations that you've placed on yourself and don't see that you can achieve that. And as we get older, we get more and more in that space sometimes where we don't think that we can overcome any of that. So that is one of the biggest challenges to awakening on our spiritual path. Okay, it's overcoming these limiting beliefs, and we do this through a regular spiritual practice, meditation, reading, writing, whatever, all these things together. When you see it, when you hear it, when you write it, all those things work together. All those practices work together to help you grow. And we all have to deal with this. So, and sometimes these beliefs are so ingrained in us, they're even in our subconscious that sometimes we may not be aware of them. And we believe them to be true, but yet it's really an illusion. It's an illusion we created for ourselves. Our ego does that. Okay, limits us from accepting that. Okay, yes, I could do that. And like I said before, when they begin to surface in your life, it usually means that they don't really serve you anymore. They come up against doesn't feel quite right to you, and it's like, okay, but maybe you don't know what steps to take to overcome that and to move through it. And it can be discouraging at times because of that. But in the end, we have simply just two choices. We can either succumb to this limiting belief and that thinking and let it rule us, or we can create a new belief that transforms our experience and takes us to a whole nother level of consciousness. So let me share with you a personal story in my life that was about overcoming a major limiting belief that I had. And in the 1980s, this is going back 35 plus years, I was a young man working in the restaurant business and doing construction work, that sort of thing. And I had already completed 1 year of college. And I got discouraged because I wasn't able to continue my education for numerous reasons. And I ended up living and working in Atlanta, Georgia. Now, at this time, I still had this dream that from the time I was a kid that I wanted to be a marine biologist. I love Jacques Cousteau, that there was a TV show called The Undersea World of Jacques Cousteau. Some of you may remember that, some probably don't know about it. But it was great seeing that and exploring. I wanted to explore like that. So at one point there, and this is before I really embarked on my spiritual journey, I had a number of experiences up to this point, but I hadn't really embraced the scientists on the spiritual path yet. But yet I also believed that it didn't feel right to me because I believed that that I could go to school anywhere I wanted. So I did some research and I found out, okay, there's marine biology programs. What are the best schools for that? So it was Florida Institute of Technology, which is where I tried to go a few years before that, and I got accepted to go there, but I didn't have the money or tuition to pay the tuition or do that. I didn't have any money to go. So that's what was discouraging how I ended up in Atlanta. But then there was also Woods Hole in Massachusetts, and then there was Scripps Institute of Oceanography in San Diego, which was part of UCSD, and then there was a great marine biology program at University of California in Santa Cruz. So I had this short list that I had created, and of course, none of them are where I was living. Okay, there was no marine biology program in Atlanta, Georgia. You're not near the ocean. So I thought, well, how am I actually going to do that? How is this going to be possible? And I didn't question that. And that's the thing about a limiting belief. If you really have a desire to accomplish something, then you'll find a way, or the way will present itself energetically. You don't have to worry about that. It's just following the inspired action that comes to you as you move through that journey. So I finally decided that I would go to UC Santa Cruz, and which was an interesting decision because I lived in Atlanta and I'd never been away from the East Coast. I grew up in upstate New York and lived down in Florida and in Georgia, and I'd never seen or lived anywhere else in the country. And Santa Cruz was, in the San Francisco, San Jose Bay Area, and it was seemed like another planet to me at that time, of like how I was going to go there. But what I found out was some close family friends had just moved to that area recently, coincidentally, just a couple months before. So I called them up and I said, "Hey, I want to." This is like July of 1988, and I said, "Hey, I want to come out and check out UC Santa Cruz and see if that's where I want to go to school." So it was just a little easy trip, uh, and I had never flown that far before either, so it's my first time flying like that. I'm in my late 20s. So I go out there and I stay with them, and then I go up to the university. Of course, it's sessions out. There's no school at that time, and so I went up to the science building I forgot the professor I met with, but he was the only one there because everybody was gone away for the summer. And he gave me a tour of the university, told me all about it, and I told him I was interested in the marine bio program. So I was so convinced that this is where I was going to go to school that on August 8th, 1988, and today is August 6th of this recording, almost, what is that? Hmm, 36 years to the day that I went and got my California driver's license so that I could establish 1 year residency. I used my friend's address because I was going to stay with them. And then I flew back to Atlanta, Georgia. I quit my job, sold everything I had except for some personal possessions. Worked about 3 months to make some money in construction work. My dad was a contractor, and then loaded up everything in a 6x12 U-Haul and an '82 Chevy Blazer, and I headed cross country. And I decided to make it a fun trip, so I had key stops that I was going to stop, like New Orleans, and then visit my brothers in Austin, Texas, and then go to Grand Canyon, and so on. And it was a great trip. Um, so I get all the way there, didn't have a job, little money, and I said, I found a job working a swing shift in a warehouse packing boxes. And so I did that, and I also was working as a waiter in a restaurant. And I put together my application for a year later, which would have been the fall of '89. Submitted my application to UC Santa Cruz, and I thought, okay, this is cool. I'm going to go to school here. So I was convinced. I had situated. I had a job to take care of things. Had a place to stay, and around the sometime after the beginning, sometime in the spring, so a few months later, I heard back from about my application, and I was denied admission, and I didn't get accepted. I said I was dumbfounded. I had this. I guess I didn't have a limiting belief that somebody that anybody could go to any college or university they wanted to, that there shouldn't be any question about that. I believe this. Why not? You should be able to do that. So, so I already had overcome that limiting belief. So I was a little bit shocked. It's kind of funny when you have it's two different ways, kind of an energy that you create in your space to be setting expectations versus being expectant. Being expectant is the more positive way to do it. You're not tying that to any. You're not limiting the energy of the creation of that by setting some firm expectation in your mind. Because if you set expectation, that's the other side of the coin. Then you're limiting yourself, and then you're also setting yourself up for disappointment. So I was quite disappointed, and I said, I can't believe this. You know. So I went up to the admissions office because I wasn't going to take no for an answer. And I met with one of the counselors, and I said, "Hey," I said, "my commission was I didn't get accepted at my for my admission." I said, "I really want to go to school here. I moved here. I moved cross country, sold everything." I said, "This is where I want to go to school." And they weren't very positive about everything. He said, I appreciate appreciate that. I'm paraphrasing here. I just being kind, but he said, "Look, we only had about 300. It was like 360 applications, and we can't accept that many people here at the university for the program." And we divide that up into three groups. The first group are those who are local right there, that maybe went to the local community college or whatever, and then they can transfer. And I was a transfer student. I had 1 year of college. So that put me in another category, was a transfer student. The second group was people from the state of California. And the third group was people from out of state or out of the country. And he said, we accepted all those applications for the next school year from the first group. So I'm in the third group, and it's like, you got to be kidding me. I said, well, what can I do? Um, he said, well, you could go to the local college here, and he said, but then you're going to have too many credits. I mean, he was very negative about everything, and and I said, well, what else can I do? And he said, well, you know, there is one avenue, and that is you could write a letter of appeal to the dean of admissions. And he said, but I will tell you, it's very rare that they accept anyone on appeal. And I said, well, I don't have anything to lose, so I'm going to write a letter to the dean, which I did. And this was going to take another couple months. Again, I was trying to get accepted for the fall of '89, September of '89, and so this is the spring of '89. And I said, okay, that's fine. So I continued to work whatever, and it got around the time of the deadline. And by the way, folks, there was no cell phones, or you talk to people, or you met them face to face. It's not like it is today, uh, in terms of, there was no LinkedIn, or any of that kind of thing. Um, and so it came around the time that I should have heard back, which was going to be by mail. There was no email for that. They were going to write a letter and tell me one way or another. And I kept checking the mail, didn't receive anything. So finally, it got to be about a week past the deadline of when I should have heard back. So I decided I needed to call the admissions office. So it happened to be around noon or so. It was around lunchtime. And I called, and the phone just rang and rang and rang. And nobody, and finally somebody answered the phone, and there was no answer machine. They didn't switch it over, and the person who answered the phone said, "Sorry about that." He said, "I thought I'm the only one here in the office. Everybody's out to lunch, and I guess they forgot to put it over to the answering machine." And then he told me his name, and it was actually the dean of admissions. Now think about that for a minute. What are the odds that I happen to call at that exact moment, where he's the only one in the office, that no one turned on the answering machine, and then he actually answered the phone? And he's the decision maker. He's the guy I need to talk to, which I would have never been able to talk to him probably if I wanted to find out. They would just tell me, "Oh, we'll send you a letter in the mail and let you know." So I told him who I was, and I said, "Look, I'm following up on my letter of appeal." And he said, "Yes, I know your name." I said, "I have your letter right here on my desk." And he said, "I was just reading it." So I wrote this like 2-page letter. I don't think I have that anymore. It would be great to read what that was. But the paraphrase, I basically shared my passion of what I wanted to do, and go there. So this is a fantastic example of overcoming a limiting belief and doing it against all odds. Like, if you want to wait till you have everything lined up and checked off on a list, you'll never do it. You just have to step forward into it and just go full bore into it. And it's the only way that you can know. And again, it doesn't mean it's going to be easy, but you move to the next thing, to the next thing on the journey, and take those steps, follow the spiritual breadcrumbs, I call them, and follow your intuition and inspiration of where you should, taking action of where you need to do. Now, a couple of weeks later, he didn't say yes or no on that call, but then I guess it was about another week, maybe it was 2 weeks, I don't, not that long. I received a letter in the mail saying, we've accepted your letter of appeal. We can't admit you in the fall of September, September of '89, but we can admit you in the winter of 1990, so January 1990. I said, no problem. So I got in there. But here's the funny thing. After getting in there, I'm thinking, and you're asking yourself, wait a minute, you said marine biology, but I'm a PhD chemist, right? So what happened? What happened is in the first couple of quarters of classes there, I was taking organic chemistry, and my professor, who was a really cool guy, was doing research on marine natural products, and he said, Bill, you really should declare your major in chemistry. He kept kind of nudging me to do that. And then after, I loved his class, and I ended up working with him as an undergraduate that summer doing a marine biology program, a marine chemistry sort of thing. It was kind of cool. And they were looking for new cancer drugs from the ocean. And I thought that was fascinating. So I switched my major to chemistry, and the rest they say is history, I guess, because after that is how I ended up jumping into this industry when I graduated from UC Santa Cruz into the natural products industry and built this incredible diverse career that I have now. But all of that from overcoming one limiting belief of where I wanted to go to school and believing that, saying no to that and saying, no, I believe I should be able to go to school. And again, overcoming any of the obstacles about where it is to go to school, right? So this is how that happened, right? Now, let's talk about what are some key points for you and what you're facing with your limiting belief. And again, it's like I said, you have to tackle it head on, okay? And the way you do that is you become the observer, and you ask yourself the following questions. Do I really believe this is true? Do I want to believe this is true? Or does this belief make sense for me anymore? So when you're asking yourself these things, the first thought that comes to you, if you're even asking the question, is, yeah, it doesn't serve you anymore. And that, you know what, I don't believe this is true for me anymore. No, I don't believe that anymore. It's like I said with me, I didn't believe that I couldn't go to school anywhere I wanted. And, wherever that came from, Spirit was guiding me and divinely interacting with me in some way and pushing me to the point of not feeling comfortable where I was. Now, we as human beings like things all to be comfortable, and that, everything should be all lined up. We don't have to accept any challenges. But if there's any spiritual law or any constant in the universe, and that is that things change. Doesn't matter. Things are going to change no matter if you do nothing or not, or you do something or not do something. So why not do something that's actually what you want to do and create a new belief for that, right? So then that's when you move to the next part of this, where it is, what is it you want to create? Okay. What do you want to experience? Okay. So if you have a notebook handy with you, this is the point where you might want to write down the first thing it came to. Maybe it already came to you, and sit with that and say, okay, what do I want to create? What limiting belief do I have that I know doesn't serve me? Just pick one. You don't have to tackle a bunch of these. I'm sure you have more than one, but pick one. And then you can do this later, sit in a meditation and contemplate that. And you want to close your eyes and feel the energy of that. Create what is the new belief for you. What is the thing you want to create? What is it that you want to believe? For me, it was I could go to college anywhere I wanted in the U.S. anywhere I wanted to go in the U.S. I could have been anywhere in the world for that matter, by the way, because there's no limitations here. You embrace your unlimited potential. So I like to use the analogy. You're like a surfer, if you're a surfer, and you're hanging 10, the phrase is, on this new belief, and you want to ride that energetic wave as it unfolds into this new level of consciousness you're going to move into. Okay? And you let go of any qualified thought, consideration, or otherwise of the limiting belief. You don't judge it, you just let it go. You accept it, this new belief, as if it's already part of your being and you feel it. And it literally only takes seconds to shift your thoughts and energy to the point where when you shift it to that new belief, there's no doubt in your mind otherwise. And even if you have doubt or doubt tries to creep in there, you can move through that and release that and let go of that. Okay? So I encourage you to do this exercise on your own. Pick a limiting belief that's coming up for you. Write down a new belief. Meditate on it. Sit with that. You don't have to necessarily act on it. But what I find on many, many occasions when I've got a question for something that I want to move through, I just ask the universe. I ask the divine. I ask all that is. And we'll talk more about what that means from a scientific or a spiritual principle. And people have different labels for what they call that, but it's an energy. And, you're going to reflect on this message, anything that comes to you, and jot down the insights. And usually the first thing that comes to you, it comes to me sometimes like I'm working out or in a meditation or just random thought comes in and then I'm inspired by something. And I don't negate it anymore when that happens, because usually the first thing that I think about is, and then when I sit with that and reflect on the message, then I realize, wow, this is what I need to do. Then I just do it. Okay, that's the inspired action, all right? So for what it is for you, you'll think about that. Okay, so now this is what I wanted to share with you today. And let's just look ahead of what's coming for upcoming podcasts. And again, I'm going to be doing excerpts like this, inspirational things. I've done public speaking for years with smaller groups. So this new vehicle of video podcast is a great way for me to reach more people. Actually, people I know that are following from all over the world. So this is fantastic. And then, of course, I can't wait to get my books published fully out there and do that. So in the future, I will probably have guests come on, and maybe it's on a particular topic or that sort of thing. But again, these will be around 30 to 45 minutes at the most. So not too long. I don't want to have you sit there for an hour and a half and hear me pontificate. This is not about that. But the work is all going to be on you and your journey and what you need to do. So this is the things that's coming. So for my next podcast, I can give you a little preview. I'm going to do an excerpt and talk about from my book, Spiritual Inheritance, Merging Generations of Divine Wisdom. And that one might be a little bit longer because I'll have to give you the context and the backstory. But, my great uncle, my grandfather, my great uncle, my great great uncle were instrumental in that, going back to 1904. So, actually, cool story. I can't wait to tell you about that, but we'll save that for the next podcast. So right now, what I'd like to do is do a closing blessing. Okay. And I'll put some music back on here. And start with that. Okay. So again, thank you for joining me today. Take a few moments to think about what you heard today, and many times things will come to you afterwards, not necessarily in the moment when we're discussing it. But we're going to breathe into the energy of that, those beliefs that we had that we're going to release, and the new beliefs we're going to create because it's exciting. We're going to go forward on our spiritual journey and do something amazing. You have no idea what you can create. You have unlimited potential. Don't ever be afraid to take that next step to do that. Just do it. And don't worry about how. You don't need to know the how. The way will present itself. So let's take a few moments to breathe into the energy of that, to feel those new beliefs to start to take footing within your spiritual consciousness within. And all the work that we do is about the journey within. This is the greatest journey you will ever take. It's always about that. And as you move through that, it expands. So we're going to go forth feeling this beautiful energy of creation, peace, and love, releasing all fear, all doubt, knowing that we're going to move on this journey. And so it is. So again, I want to thank you for joining today. And please visit my website at williamdavidclark.com. It's my name. Easy to remember, williamdavidclark.com. You can subscribe there on the website to get announcements about any blog posts I do, or when the books publish, or when the podcasts are going to be topics that I'm going to do. And I do postings on LinkedIn. I stream live to LinkedIn and Facebook. This episode is not streaming live. I had technical difficulties on Sunday with the software. It wasn't working right, but so I had to redo this. But you can follow on all this. All the social media links are on my website. There's a page on Facebook. There's a page on LinkedIn. You should follow. That way you'll see the announcements when they come there as well. And again, thank you so much for joining me, and really excited about where this is going to go and what we're going to do in this journey together. Please send any questions you have, any thoughts you have afterwards, or things that you'd like to hear about maybe. I'm quite sure that I've probably experienced that in some way. And be glad to communicate with you on that. Okay? So again, go through the rest of your day, the rest of the week. Have a wonderful week. And we'll see you on the next episode of Where Spirit Meets Science. With love and gratitude, I'm Dr. Bill.